time and leisure. Do you want me to do my intro again, admin? Sorry, the recording wasn't started. I'll just say it all over again. Yeah. Hello and welcome. I'm Gayatri Srivastav, and this is Gupshup with Gayatri, Season 2, Old World Conversations with New Age Technology. As many of you know, Gupshup is a series of light and casual conversations on topical issues with domain experts. But light does not make it frivolous. Casual is not the same as flippant. Gupshup is not gossip. Gupshup is in fact an intimate chat in the company of family and friends in the age of social distancing and lockdowns. Gupshup with Gayatri is not designed as a high voltage debate aimed at getting you angry and agitated. Rather, it's an attempt, it's an endeavor to have meaningful conversations so that one has the time and leisure to ponder, reflect, learn, comment, and sometimes even unlearn about issues around us. Does that mean that no uncomfortable questions shall be asked? They shall, but not in the nation wants to know, Bharat puchta hai kind of way. Gupshup is broad in its scope. Previous topics have dealt with issues as diverse as economics and financial planning, film, food, feng shui, cancer care, education, and today on Teachers' Day, last year we had a teacher, and today also we have someone related to teaching. We've covered diverse topics, and the guests on Gupshup have been involved in different professions, from authors and activists to journalists, musicians, film producer, film director, and CEOs. Most of the guests on Gupshup have been ex-students of Delhi's Lady Shri Ram College for Women, LSR, a college that I attended to in the 90s. And while Gupshup did primarily start off as a way of interviewing outstanding LSR alum, and we have one of that today with us, Gupshup has chosen to not restrict itself to this pool of talented women, because there are so many incredible stories around here and so many inspiring women. And some of you are in the audience. Some of those inspiring women, some of those incredible women, some of those stories that need to go out are in the audience here today. Another unique feature of Gupshup is the quality of the audience and the interactive nature of the interview. The predominantly female audience of Gupshup is well-educated, intelligent, and discerning. These women are the opinion makers and the thought leaders of today's India, and their comments add a special zing to these conversations. So, dear audience members, thank you so much for joining in. Send us your queries and comments in the chat box, and sit back and enjoy Gupshup with Gayatri, Season 2, Old World Conversations with New Age Technology. Our guest today is the very elegant Ashu Khanna, another high achiever from LSR. Ashu is someone who displays two very different characteristics at the same time. She's dynamic yet serene. Ashu, how do you manage that? Generally, the really dynamic people I've seen have always been, how should I put it? They don't exude the same aura of calmness and serenity as you. But you can answer that question later. Let me finish my introduction. Ashu is the founder CEO of Arca Leadership. She's a leadership expert and master coach, an author, motivational speaker, and an entrepreneur. She's also the founder president of the Mumbai chapter of the International Coach Federation. And her Arca Foundation focuses on developing authentic leaders and counts among its clients everyone from Citibank and Standard Chartered to BCG, Barclays, Tata, and Reliance. In 1989, Ashu made history by being the first woman hire of Arthur Andersen at its Delhi office. In those days, Arthur Andersen was one of the world's largest accounting firms. From an all-girls college to being the only lady in the office, Ashu has seen it all. In fact, she was living the charm expat life in Hong Kong and Singapore till a probing question at an image management workshop in the UK in 2006 turned her life upside down, and she chose to go on a voyage of self-discovery and transformation and became a leadership and a business coach. She is today one of India's leading coaches. Ashu Khanna, welcome to Gupshup with Gayatri. Such a privilege to have you here.
Thank you so much. So pleasure to be amongst friends. Totally wonderful. When I passed out of LSR in '89, I really never thought I will one day be back with alum, but having a WhatsApp group and meeting friends at Antakshni events, lunch at Gesu's, annual get together at Otters Club. It's been really a wonderful journey with the LSRites. And I used to earlier say I have not enough memories of Elsa, but thank you so much for Gayatri adding to them once more. When you ask about, yes, there are two very diverse facets to me, the dynamism and the serenity. Yet, how come I don't show it? Maybe you should ask Kavita that question. Does she get to see that completely mad side of me, which is like all over the place? So absolutely. I have my days, I have my moments. And what has really brought about the biggest change in me is the fact that I really live from within now. I didn't earlier. I didn't know such a concept existed. Or I would say I lived fleetingly from there.
When you say you live from within, so does it mean listening to your inner voice, your intuition?
Absolutely. So have I followed? All of us follow our intuition at certain times. It's not as if we don't. But do we follow it all the time? I think that's the big difference that's come. I now follow it all the time. Creates chaos galore in my life at times, but now it's invited chaos rather than chaos that just comes into my life without being caught unawares. So that is really where the difference comes in, because when you follow your inner voice, you're inviting chaos into your life. Whereas when you live without an understanding of life, you get hit with everything that's happening in your life. So I would really attribute the serenity to that. And the dynamism to that.
Yeah. So Ashu, when you talk about listening to your inner voice, but I mean, there are people, I'll count maybe myself amongst them, we don't know what the inner voice is. What is the inner voice? How do you, how do we learn? How do we learn to identify it and probably then listen to it?
So, you very aptly said intuition. Do we all have a sense of knowing? You feel intuitively, you kind of know it. Absolutely. Think of it as, when you're cheating on yourself, forget about anybody and anything else. There is always a little voice that tells you it's not right for you, but there will be that overwhelming emotion that will make you do something. And irrespective of knowing whether it's right for you or not. And it is that constant tussle between the overwhelming emotions and the inner voice that continues to dull the sound of the inner voice. The play of life or the game of life is to swap the two. Swap the power between the two, where you make the inner voice louder and the overwhelming emotions calmer.
Okay. Can you give a practical example of you having listened to your inner voice, so that it's easier for the audience also to understand.
So I'll tell you, see, something like, so as a chartered accountant, it was firstly becoming a chartered accountant is not easy, where everybody knows that chances of failing are very high. It's easy to get in, tough to get out.
Yeah.
Having been a first-time qualifier, I had a big chip on my shoulder about it. And there was a certain identity association with being a CA. After some years of marriage, kids, all of that, and working, somewhere my life as a professional was not working out. I really saw a need to change gears. But there was this sense of, I don't know what else I can do and how can I give this up, which I've worked so hard to earn. I think it took me a while to actually accept and understand that CA was a certification I had actually, yes, I had earned, but with those years came a very high level of skill sets, attributes, and all that I had also discovered in myself. And instead of giving higher importance to the experience and attributes, I was giving higher importance to that one set of exams and paper. So I started looking at those attributes. And in those attributes, two of them that really popped pretty strongly were an ability to be entrepreneurial and connect with people with ease. I didn't know how to put the two together in any profession. The only profession which I'd heard of as being people oriented was HR. So I tried doing some, I purely by chance, I actually got recruited by Executive Access to be part of the recruitment organization. Wasn't something that I saw myself sustaining. Again, I even worked briefly with Pepsi Foods, again, assignment basis, wasn't something that was sustaining in the very core HR area domain. I joined on coming back, even Kotak Bank as a relationship manager, but the thought of being a banker lifetime broke me out. Okay. And that's when I sat back and really asked myself, how do I put these two together? When everywhere, yes, it was what I was doing was validating those two attributes, but still wasn't fulfilling my need. Actually, I left Kotak pretty much overnight. And purely because somewhere I think one day you connect the dots and say that, in India, what's missing is leadership development. And the day I connected those dots, I think it was as if someone had just handed me over the solution to all my problems to me. Not that I had the solution, to be honest. I think I was kidding myself because I didn't even know how to walk down that path. But I quit Kotak, and that was purely following my intuition. I had no answers. I had no certification, no mentor, no path, no nothing. But it was a sheer trust of a leap of faith that I took to quit and walk down this path.
Okay. Excellent. So I think, yeah. So from what I understand, intuition is also learning to say no to certain things. You're not saying yes to something, but maybe you're also saying no to something. That's also part of the process.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
You're being true to yourself. I think you're really being true to that sense of comfort in you, that sense of ease with which you live, rather than fulfilling what society necessarily you may perceive as right, but that may not be right for you.
So Ashu, you are one of India's leading coaches today, but not many people are familiar with this term coaching. In fact, it's something that entered our vocabulary, say about a decade ago. So can you tell us briefly what is coaching and who is it meant for?
So coaching is something, which is it's like a guru shishya relationship. So would I say it's meant for anyone and everyone? Absolutely. But there's always a right time when you're ready for it. It doesn't mean anyone and everyone is ready for it at this when you think so. Being ready means, are you really willing to look deep within and face up to yourself and move forward from there? It requires, being authentic or true to yourself requires facing up to a lot of, when you've been fooling yourself or saying facing up to your fears, your ego, your perceptions, the various attachments. There's a lot that you're having to unearth when you really go through that journey. So what coaching really does is, a coach is like a reflective mirror. So when you're engaging with a coach, it's as if someone is actually holding the mirror and showing you all the patterns, paradoxes, everything that exist in you. Now, a lot of times we say something, but we do another and we mean a third. And that is where a coach is able to actually pick those discrepancies and reflect it back and ask you, what is it that you truly want and can do by focusing on your strengths? So that's where a coach plays a huge role in being that sounding board, a relatable confidant and friend, and a reflective mirror. And it's a very safe space of trust because there is no judgment, no bias, no what's right or wrong. It's your space of discovery.
So is the coach then also a mentor?
In certain ways can be, not necessarily. A mentor is often a domain expert. A coach could also come from the same domain, but doesn't have to be.
Okay. And how different is coaching from, say, counseling, psychological counseling?
Counseling is a lot about healing the past. It's more therapeutic. Does coaching also sometimes heal? Absolutely, because as you're shedding your emotions in a safe space, it does get cathartic and it does help you anchor your emotions. But there is a lot of past baggage that all of us carry. And there are times there are extreme issues of depression or very high guilt and anger and all that. And I think that is where a counselor clearly can be more help than necessarily a coach.
So have you had a case? I mean, have you referred someone to a counselor,
So I'll tell you, there are times when sometimes I have made the mistake of expecting a client as being ready because they've been seeing they're ready. There have been times when I said, you are not ready for it today. Are you truly ready? So both things happen when you're, either in your enthusiasm or in your sometimes expectation that if the client is saying, no, I'm good to go, sure, you're good to go. I think it takes a lot of experience to say, no, step back. You are not taking any forward moving action. So if you notice that in any conversation, the past story keeps coming back and the person is just not ready to move forward, 9 on 10 cases, you need counseling first before coming to a coach. Because clearly you're so married to the story that you're not able to pull yourself out of that story.
Okay. I was looking at your website, Ashu, www.ashukhanna.com, and the testimonials on your website are, it's like in the who's who of corporate India, from Tony Singh to Analjit Singh and Sudhanshu Vats and Ajay Piramal. There are very few women there. So I just wanted to ask you, I mean, do more men come in for sign up for coaching than women in India? And if so, why?
I think corporate India. So here's the dichotomy. There are more women coaches than there are men coaches, firstly. Okay. But in corporate India, there are more men leaders than women leaders. I think so. That's where sometimes they end up facing up to us women than having to have another man across them.
So that's a very interesting point you made. There are more women coaches.
Yeah.
And there are more male clients.
Yes.
And why do you think so? Is it because women are intuitively better at coaching? Or is it because of more empathy, say, maybe?
I would say so, possibly. If I look globally, yes, there are more women coaches. However, if I had to really look at very, very senior coaches, again, strangely, there are more male coaches. So once again, when it comes to the real pinnacle of leadership, you see the men again. Is it that the men know how to brand themselves better, or do they are able to single-mindedly focus themselves on their career? I think it's a combination of factors. A lot of women tend to be balancing many things at the same time. And I have met both men and women coaches who are fabulous. I have been coached by some of the really best ones, and I would say there's not necessarily that the male is better or the female is better. I think it's just a question of who is right for you at what point in time.
Okay. So then, coming back to your personal journey, Ashu, so you think when you were asked in 2006, whose acceptance are you waiting for? And that's when you decided to get into coaching and this whole new.
So that
whose acceptance were you waiting for when you went back and you thought about it?
I think, I don't know about others, but I was caught in a web of waiting for everybody's acceptance. Whether as a mother, as a daughter, as a spouse, as a daughter-in-law, as a sister, daughter, as a colleague, I was caught in a web and I wasn't even aware of it. I don't think we even sometimes realize how much we keep waiting for others to acknowledge and validate us. And I think that is one of the very big reasons.
Sorry. Ashu, you've gone on mute. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. And maybe that is one of the reasons why there are fewer women leaders at the pinnacle, because they take longer to say no to some of the demands of the world. Was it my upbringing as an Indian girl, where it was that you have to be a good girl and a good wife and a good this and a good that? Absolutely. And I don't think anybody can tell you, are you being good enough or not? You have to pretty much decide that for yourself. But do we even understand that reality? Not at all. And it was a rude shock for me to wake up to that. To face up to that was quite a difficult moment, but in its own way, a very liberating moment. Because that's what really set me on this whole path of self-discovery and self-transformation.
I think what you're saying resonates for many of us. Sanjana is saying, yeah, she can relate to it. I can also relate to it to a large extent. There's so many roles we play and we play them effortlessly, and then we don't realize that maybe, that acceptance. So then you decided to break free of all those acceptances of all that.
It's not so easy.
I'm trying to understand.
No, I promise you, I wasn't Freddie Mercury, I break free.
It was bit and bit.
It's bit by bit, because if you when I say life is a mirror, we are a reflective mirror, all our relationships really reflect what you hold within. And it's we who, as a woman or as a human being, I had cultivated created an environment of it's okay, it doesn't matter, I understand. And at some point you say, hey, it's not for me to only be okay, not for me to only say it doesn't matter or understand. What about the rest of the world? Because suddenly at some point, why did all these questions even come up? Because I wasn't being able to live up to everybody's expectations. It wasn't possible. And unknowingly, you fall into a trap where you start reflecting that on your kids or on your environment around you, of expecting that, that idealism out of them. So there's a prey and predator relationship, I think, that exists in the world in all kinds of matrix. Uh, and it creates so much agitation in the head. So when we talk of wanting to be at peace and happy, it really means getting rid of that entire energy web that you've got yourself entangled in. And disentangling means creating upsets at times because you've created expectations. It means not always knowing how to say no or communicating it most respectfully. I don't know it still. At times, some relationships are so deep seated or so enmeshed in your life, it's not always possible to say it in the most polite way, and you do create ruffles around you. It takes a lot to sit back. There are times I'll be writing and practicing how do I want to say it. I may take a week to figure out how I want to say it. But yeah, bit by bit, you walk the path.
Let me ask you then, so who's been your biggest ally in this transformation?
My husband. And my son.
Cheers to him from us.
My husband has been my rock of Gibraltar. I mean, he's taken all the nonsense and more from me and still loves me unconditionally. And honestly, I don't know how sometimes.
We can see that. No. As you said, the mirror, it reflects you from within. So if you're getting that unconditional love from your husband, you're worthy of it.
Thank you.
Which brings me to the other aspect. When you're talking of unconditional love, you said something very about motherhood and unconditional love, how motherhood teaches one unconditional love.
You know, as a mother, you think you're doing your best, but it takes a lot to see both kids differently. It takes a lot to see that two kids are two different souls. They are not just your children. They are two souls who've come into your life to play as much a role of transformation in your life as you will in theirs. And stepping back and seeing them as a soul versus just your kids, it's a tough dance. It's a very, very tough dance because you're, on one hand, you have your ambitions of wanting to see them do well. You want to ingrain the right values and do all those parenting things. On the other hand, you want to see them blossom and not feel stifled. So becoming a coach, the one large benefit that I found was that I really stepped back and had to learn to stop rescuing them at times. I think I would say Indian parents, and I'm sorry if I'm being slightly generalist in it, but I think we have a habit of being very rescuing in our approach to motherhood.
Helicopter parenting.
And really letting your kid fall and fail, I think, is the best thing you can do for them, at least in their early life. Because by the time otherwise they learn failure when it's too late, it's very hard for them to get up. I'm often reminded of how we celebrate when they move from crawling to walking, and we let them learn to walk. But when it comes to school homework, school achievements, suddenly we become very competitive about which university, which grade, which this, which that. And you just have to sit back sometimes for them to find their own way. Takes a lot, but I think what I would say is, as a parent, being vulnerable, communicating openly, being open to even taking them holding up the mirror on you. You have to accept that also. You can't say only I'll be the one holding the mirror. And today's kids are too smart. One of the very early things I learned as a parent was, don't think that they're stupid ever. Don't make that mistake.
Not at all.
They are very intelligent. And if I speak to them at that level, they will always respond. If I treat them as a kid, it's my folly, not theirs. So I think that was a very big shift I had to bring in my thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. Kids are very smart, very perceptive, and very grown up. And I don't know, I can speak personally that I've learned so much from my kids and my, the extended brood of nieces and nephews. That there's so much to learn. I think one thing of that no one tells you about motherhood is how much you as a mother learn from your children. It's not just one way communication where you're trying to teach the kid everything, the child everything. How much we learn from them is often underplayed. That's been my learning as a mother.
Completely agree with you.
Okay. You've also spoken about ikigai in your motivational videos that you do, Ashu. You want to tell us how we can, a lot of people are under a lot of stress these days.
See, ikigai, or finding what is right for you, is a marrying of your passion, what works for the world, and what you can do effortlessly. It's a convergence of all of that. And for me, coaching became a convergence. Becoming a coach really became my convergence. So it was a question of, now, do we find it immediately? I think the biggest sometimes gap I find in people is their desire to have an answer right away. You can't. You have to be open to exploring. And like you said, knowing what doesn't work for you to then know what works for you. So it wasn't as if I found what works for me overnight. From being a CA, where I actually took it up because I enjoyed numbers, and then moving on to trying graphic design, trying retail, import, export, trying to open a restaurant, trying banking. I mean, I've HR, recruitment. I tried many, many, many things before I really came to a point of what is it that could work for me. So it's an exploration of finding your passion. Some get very lucky and some need time.
Yeah. So how can we try and find this joyfulness? Are there some steps? Is there some method to this? How we can go around discovering?
So there is absolutely a method to it. And I'm going to here, really look at the wisdom in Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita has given the 4 paths of karma, Gyan, Raj Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. You can start from any, but essentially, if the 4 go parallelly, not sequentially. See, when you do them sequentially, then something is always falling off the block. On the other hand, if your actions are in alignment with being true to yourself, your Gyan means your understanding of who you are. So you're using your strengths to your fullest in expressing yourself to your fullest. So it's really a question of marrying that. And like even a bowler will not necessarily be the best batsman and vice versa. Does that mean you can't bat or bowl? No, but it's just that in the order of cricket, the team, you will possibly go up and down accordingly. So it's really playing that strength to the fullest. If you are, and understanding that if I am not the best bowler, I should not try to be a bowler and insist on being that bowler, because then your ego is coming in your way. So that's where team spirit really comes into the picture. So Bhakti Yoga or living with collaboration and understanding diversity comes into play there. The more you collaborate and the more you're able to harness your potential. To harness that potential comes Raj Yoga, having the discipline to anchor your thoughts and emotions, energy, your breath with your inner self. So when you're practicing, whether you call it meditation, yoga, walking, exercise, music, reading, whatever works for you as your me time to really help you contemplate and even sit back and look at life with gratitude as this, this is because the more you look at life with gratitude, the more you're able to tap into the abundance of life. So, we often talk of FOMO. So FOMO is always looking at what you're missing out, versus when you're looking at it with abundance, you're really multiplying that. because the whole lens is different. So when you start bringing these four, your senses, your thoughts, your emotions, and your energy together in your actions, so if they're integrated when you act, that is when you're really coming from that very centered space and you're joyful. So it's really being, and joyful is really being alive to yourself and life around you at all times. Uh, it doesn't mean being at ease with yourself at all times. It means being really alive. We do go into spaces of, as a human being, you will have grief, you will have moments of disturbance, but how quickly can you come back is what really matters.
How beautifully you've aligned, Japanese philosophy with ancient, with that of the Bhagavad Gita, Arka. And that's what you do at your Arka leadership also. You're combining Western philosophy with Indian philosophy.
It is,
Ashu.
the universal truth can't change, whether it's Buddhism or Islam or anything. Honestly, the universal truth can't change. The makeup of humanity hasn't changed. Our aspiration for happiness hasn't changed. So, really speaking, it's all the same, just expressed differently.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. So what we've read and what's given in our scriptures in many ways, what we are practicing now in modern coaching. Is that what you're saying?
It is actually when I got exposed to the scriptures in 2004. I was always I was a religious person, not spiritual till then. And I'll really distinguish where it was blind faith. Did that support me in many ways? Yes, because I had the capacity to just, sometimes let go and say, "ठीक है, जो होगा सो होगा, लिखा है" types. But spirituality is really understanding the entire ethos and science of life. So that is, and when I got down to coaching, it's an application. It's yet another tool for expanding awareness. And I say yet another tool because meditation is a tool, yoga is a tool, they're all tools. So coaching is yet another tool.
Yeah, absolutely. Nina and Kavita are saying, Ashu, how beautifully you express yourself. And I think.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. My next question, Ashu, is from, how does one constantly, this question is actually from Shalini. She's an artisanal baker in Chennai. She's saying, how does one keep oneself motivated, especially one is a home entrepreneur, you're on your own, not part of any organization. How do you motivate yourself every day?
So, when you commit to living true to yourself, I think I would say my inner self throws up so many creative ideas in front of me. I'm never short of motivation. So I would say creativity is the biggest way to get motivated. Finding your creative expression, finding new ways to express, whether you are a baker or anything. I would never, if let's go back 30 years, I would have never imagined I could eat a banana shake, a banana cake, a banana cookie, a banana this and a banana crepe and that. But today, that same simple banana which your mom made you eat as your morning routine,
banana and milk,
yeah, has become so many different creative expressions which you enjoy actually eating now. So that's really what I would say, finding those creative expressions. And we've been gifted that ability to observe life differently and connect dots. So when you ask me, how do I keep myself motivated, is really constantly looking at life afresh. There's something always anew, something afresh, something to do differently. The fun part that has happened for me was that when I went down the path of being a leadership coach, I only knew at that time one-on-one coaching. And if I look at now 15 years hence, that same person expresses the same thing as one-on-one, in groups, in my books, in webinars, in podcasts, as I'm going to be putting out an app in about a year plus, year or so, as a training program. So it's really about finding different ways in social media. So it's really about finding different ways. And I think that reinventing yourself is the best way to stay motivated.
Easier said than done, though, I must add. Yeah.
Look at you. Come on. I have seen what you've been doing last 2 years. Come on. You have reinvented, and how?
Thank you. It's a huge compliment coming from a life coach. I'll take it.
Oh,
Okay.
absolutely. Give yourself that.
Okay, thank you, Ashu. No, on a more serious note, in this COVID call, as they say, a lot of people are getting overwhelmed with this situation because circumstances are not in control. There's so many disruptions and lockdowns and work from home. I mean, how does one counter this feeling of getting overwhelmed, swamped with things? I know, do we go back again? I mean,
it's back to what I call back to going home means inside. Circumstances will never be in our control. We are all familiar. I think most of us may be familiar with this TV series Downton Abbey.
Yes.
Now, when I was watching that, you see 2 world wars.
Yeah.
You see the newspaper, you see telephony, you see cars, you see this, and you see, how the, who is it? What's he called? The Baron, the Duke, the Duke. Lord, yeah.
Lord Crawley.
Lord Crawley. He's having a very hard time adjusting with the change, whereas his wife keeps adapting to it because she keeps moving with the times, and he is absolutely thrown off with his daughters embarking on these mad journeys. Dynamism has been in our life always. It's really for us to move with it and accept it as a part of our life rather than hope and wish that it won't happen. Can't.
Yeah. Comes back to centering ourselves and learning. Okay. I think I'll take this question, which has come all the way from Australia, from Kriti Koles. How do you reconcile Western individualistic coaching strategies with Indian and largely collectivist cultural expectations?
So, so firstly, coaching is not individualistic. By an industry, it's really about awakening the inner self. And the minute you get into that space of awakening the inner self, you are tapping into collective consciousness. So at all times, the science of coaching is very much aligned to the Indian philosophy. Now, the models they come up with is, I would admit, unfortunately, very individualistically success-oriented. But I think that is possibly a limitation in expression rather than intent. Because when you really work with coaches there, it is not so. And the framework that I've designed is very mindful of this dichotomy, and that's why it looks at coexistence as the reality of life, because at all times I'm always a part of society. It doesn't matter whether that society is my family, a community, my work, anything. I'm always, as an individual, part of a society, and we have to learn to coexist. So that is where, if you look at the science, that's why I look at my whole Gyan Yoga, Karma Yoga, Raj Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, and you talk of leadership sciences, it's always about collaboration. It's always about inclusion. It's always about how diversity is a given. So I think that's what I'm saying. It's sometimes just a limitation in maybe expression or modeling, but intent, no. But some of the models are very powerful.
Okay, yeah. It's not Lord Crawley, sorry, it's Lord Grantham.
I could not remember either. So it's okay. You and I were two blind leading the blind right now. It's okay.
My admin has just informed me, yeah, she's sorry.
So tell her thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, so you're watching. Yeah. So Kriti, I hope that answers your question. There's another question that's coming from Sydney. How do you differentiate between Instagram created wellness pseudo life coaches and truly legitimate ones? Is it from their client list, testimonials? Because unfortunately, there are enough people calling themselves coaches and not really doing their jobs.
Yes. So is that an ill of the market? Yes. But I also believe that the world is always very discerning. Our language, our communication, our expressions give us away. And I think that's really how we are able to. So, my social media team calls them clickbaity. Those,
Clickbait.
those are clickbaity coaches.
Yeah.
So they serve their own purpose, I think, in sometimes giving those quick tips, which a lot of the youth are looking for. So they serve the need of that instant gratification and instant answers like Maggie noodles. But life isn't Maggie noodles. You've got to cook it. It takes time to cook.
Any red herrings to watch out for?
See, ultimately, Gayatri, we all have, transformation is a journey. It is not tips and hacks. Never can be. So,
yeah. Therefore, Maggie noodles will not work. Yeah. Okay. Ashu, you're also an author of 4 books. And in some ways, most the books are very interrelated and yet different. There's one on perfection. There's one on freedom. There is one on I am, life is, live life with mastery. Can you tell us how you define perfection? And does the pursuit of perfection lead to happiness or unhappiness?
Okay, so the biggest joke for me in my life has been to wake up to this whole pursuit of perfection and realize it's the biggest hoax I was playing on myself, or I think, trauma I was adding to my life. Because there is no definition of perfection externally. Animals, human beings, flowers, entire creation is diverse. We enjoy diversity, we learn from diversity, we admire diversity. It is not possible, and it is never going to happen, that we'll not have diversity. Then therefore, external perfection is a complete fallacy. It's really about embracing the inner perfection or the inner voice and living from there. So all my books actually is a stepwise, my own journey of transformation. Book 1, I Am Freedom, was my journey of questioning my perceptions. Am I born free, perfect? Do I have freedom of thoughts and will, and understanding my ego? My second book, I Am Life Is, I questioned all my attachments to my identifications and my perspectives. So it really came down to looking at I am as you experience me, life is as you see it. There is no right and wrong. And my third book to that, With Love and Reverence, is a book of poems which, in very simple language, encapsulates the whole journey from what is my quest of what is life, who am I, and how to live life. As these books have unfolded, actually these books chronicle or showcase how I have unfolded. And that's where the fourth book came, I Am Perfection, where I started writing about the journey of the mind. And I've taken the entire philosophy of the Vedic scriptures of manas, ahamkara, buddhi, the development of the intellect to discern, and the understanding the ego, and going into the place of integration and yoga. So that is where I am perfection goes, how you can unfold consciously by actually looking at the world as a mirror to your unfoldment. I'm now working on my fifth book, which now goes into really tapping into the miracles of life and, consciously seeing life as a series of miracles.
Wow. There's a question from Gesu. Gesu, would you like to switch on the camera and ask the question yourself?
I can switch on my camera,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so
Please go
hi,
ahead.
hi.
Yeah.
Okay, so my question is really, what are your own personal goals, Ashu, and how do they intersect with professional ones, or they don't?
So, great question, Gayatri. At one time, I think they were completely divergent. Today, everything moves in the same all together. Because personally, committing to living in alignment with my inner voice keeps giving me new professional expressions and mediums to showcase externally. So it's all very much one and the same for me now.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That you've actually made it, in pursuit of personal goals, your professional ones get served, right? Which is not true for a lot of us who are actually, in a job. So yeah, that's interesting.
When
Thanks.
your personal and professional goals kind of assimilate into one, then I think we can happily say that we've transformed ourselves, Gesu. That's what I've understood from this chat with Ashu. Any more questions, audience? Would you like to send in your queries? Anything specific? Okay. Okay. I also wanted to ask you, so maybe it's nearly 6 o'clock. Yeah, before we wrap up, you spoke about perfection, and this is the season of the Olympics and the Paralympics. You've spoken about the art of winning. Winning is embracing the fear of failure. Can you tell us more
about the art of winning or embracing the fear of failure?
Both. Art of winning.
I think once you embrace the fear of failure, right, Ashu, you won.
So firstly, I think the day you accept that failure is a given, I think that's when you understand. Do I fear it? Fears don't go away. But I think what changes is trust enhances in your life. You start trusting yourself more than you start fearing life. And that is when the flip happens. And does that mean that I will not fail? No, absolutely not. I will continue to fail, because that is the only way you try things differently, learn differently. In fact, I would put it as taking something out of everything is the art of winning.
Taking something out of everything is the art of winning.
So taking the best out of every situation makes you a winner. Every situation will always be transformational for you. And it is really for us to see what it is trying to transform in us. The day you are able to see that life is always happening for a reason, there's really no losing then, ever. It's a very social definition of losing. So very recently I folded, I wouldn't say folded, I would maybe more diplomatically say reconfigured. But I had put together a collaboration of coaches and experts, and with huge passion and with a very big set of vision in front of me. It didn't pan out as I envisioned. I had to take a step back. I had to, in July, tell them that this is not working in the way we've put it together. Nobody disputed that it wasn't working. and everybody was absolutely in agreement with, we had tried our best, but something wasn't happening there. I really said, I'm going to be taking a pause to see what is it that's going wrong. And I would say I was limiting myself with my imagination rather than opening myself to the higher imagination. And I think that is what I was really, where it was going wrong. But it takes a lot to step back and say, it's not working. Let me see what's not right here.
Is this where the concept of looking good versus feeling good?
Yep. That's when I said, I don't want to stay with this just because it looks good to stay together. It's not feeling good anymore. The idea of the app emerged from this pause. I've started, conceptualizing, working towards that. But I'm very sure a new idea would never have emerged had I not taken that pause.
It's 6 o'clock. We'll take one last audience question, Ashu. It's from Sanjana. Why do people identify others with their job or the work they do? Why is that the case? How can we accept others who are just housewives? Why is the profession so important to, you label someone as...
So I would say, are we equally to blame as calling ourselves just housewives? Yes. We work harder. The mistake we make is we don't say no when the demands come on us. We think that the role of a housewife is all encompassing. It means taking everybody's flack and allowing others to fly. No, your soul too demands flight. And when your soul demands flight, it means time to sit back, recalibrate, and tell everybody, my soul demands flight. I need partnership on the house. I don't want just the role of a wife and a husband, but a partnership. And changing that, or sitting down and reconfiguring that equation, is what changes everything. But you have to sit down to be able to say that. You have to counter yourself for it.
On that note, Ashu, thank you for such an inspiring session. You have said so many things. You've given us so much to think about collaboration and partnerships, looking within, centering oneself, living joyfully. I mean, one could go on and on about, each segment of those, if one really gets into the depth of it, would be a half-an-hour conversation minimum each. Thank you so much. And we look forward to wishing you lots more success. Look forward to that 5th book of yours. Look forward to seeing that app of yours, and keep going and keep motivating us also, and keep sharing your inspiring thoughts and stories. Thank you, dear audience. I hope you enjoyed today's session. Till the next episode of Gupshup with Gayatri. Tata, bye-bye. See you again. Thank you, Ashu. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Bye,
much,
Ashu.
everybody from all corners of the world, for being here, for waking up, staying up late, chiming in.
Yeah. Sunita Bhargav joined in from New York.
Yeah,
so we have people from Australia to the US.
Yeah. Hello, ladies. I'm in pajamas.
Hi, darling. Good to have you here.
Yeah, it was a lovely session. Thank you so much.
No, thank you all. And thank you, Gayatri, for inviting me to Gupshup with Gayatri.
Thank you. Signing off. Till the next episode, Old World Conversations with New Age Technology. Bye-bye.